Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I'm your host, Robin Hackney, and I'm so happy that you're here. This podcast is a place for conversations about balancing a healthy lifestyle and being happy. More specifically, happy hour. Together, we'll explore all things wellness and wine. I hope you learn a little, laugh a lot, and along the way, know you're not alone on this balanced wellness journey. Ready to jump in? Pour something in your glass that makes you happy because it's time for Spandex and Wine. Hey, thank you for being here. Today's guest is a colleague of mine. She's a health and wellness coach as well as a podcaster. She approaches her wellness programs with a complete focus. It's not just nutrition and fitness. She believes in mental, spiritual, sexual, financial, everything together. She does an amazing job. She has some online courses coming too. But as I was doing this recording with her, I was just so moved and touched, and even more so when I went back to edit it and do my takeaways. I feel like this is going to be a very powerful episode. So pour something in your glass that makes you happy and help me welcome my friend, Julia Putnam. Well, hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast, Julia. I'm so happy that you're here.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is going to be wonderful. Your story is so amazing, and I can't wait to just dive in, hear everything, where you came from, what you've accomplished, how it's led you to a career in health and wellness, and now a new podcast, and you have online courses coming. You're just doing it all. So let's get going.
Yeah. Okay. Just dive in.
Just start wherever you want to start with your story.
Well, I mean, I have as far as my health and everything and my weight loss journey is concerned, I have struggled with my weight my whole life.
Okay.
And so much of this stuff, it's so interesting. So much of how I talk about it now is so different than how I would have talked about it 3 years ago when my actual journey started.
Sure.
As I've learned so much, you know what I mean? And it's I have all these ahas and I was a really big baby. I was 24 inches long. So I've never, big baby, big girl.
I'm sorry for your mom.
Yeah, me too. In more ways than one. No. But so I've never been small. And I've always been, big baby, big, big, big. And so I've always talked about myself as being a big girl. And that's always been the image of myself. And so I kind of today believe that me becoming overweight has a lot to do with how my entire life I told myself I was the big girl in the room. When I look back at pictures growing up, I am not the big girl in the room. But in my head, I was always the big girl. And so I told myself I was big. I told myself I was fat. I told myself all of these things. And fast forward, I was close to 300 pounds. I'm 5'8", and I was close to 300 pounds. I really didn't love myself. I didn't like myself. I did not. And so kind of as an escape from my unhappiness and my I'm just disconnection from myself.
Sure.
I just immersed myself in work, and I am a helper. I'm a people pleaser,
Okay.
from childhood, and do everything I can to take care of everybody around me at the sacrifice of me 100%. I think that is very typical of a lot of women, and we prioritize our families and we prioritize our, spouses or, partners or whatever.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so that was absolutely me to a T, even when it came to my job. And so that was everyone around me. That was everyone that I served at my job, everything. So I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, just really, really diving into my job. I heard somebody say once that there's no such thing as toxic people. There's toxic behaviors and things like that. And I really like that. And so I won't say that my job was toxic, because I actually do really believe in this organization and everything that they do. But I had allowed a toxic environment to develop in my department and with myself and between my employers and myself. And I convinced myself and that I loved my job and I loved my job and I love my job. It's one of those things I just said over and
Yeah.
over again. And it kind of was like an excuse for me to devote so much of my time to it. I started losing friends because I would just bail because I'd stay at work. My mom and my brother and I are very tight knit. And
Hmm.
I started disappointing my mom on a regular basis because I would be hours later than I told her I would be there because I'd be stuck at work and, things like that.
Hmm.
And then COVID hit. And so then I was working from home, and you'd think that that would be a good thing because then you don't maybe have to work quite as much, but actually I worked more.
Oh,
And
wow.
because then I didn't have to like go to work. It was an hour commute. I live in New York, so like that's,
Uh-huh.
an hour each way on the subway is pretty normal. And so I had 2 extra hours that I could actually work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other part is living in New York, even though I was so overweight, I walked a little over a half a mile to and from the subway every day. I was
Hmm.
moving around the building that I managed and so I had a lot more activity. And then being stuck in my home, I didn't go anywhere. And I'd have symptoms or something like that. Even though I didn't go anywhere, I was convinced I'd have COVID. So I wouldn't talk to my mom and I like quarantined myself basically because I was like, I'm not giving this to anybody. I'm not going to be
Yeah.
responsible, all that stuff. So I literally would leave my house to take the trash. So anyway, I'm belaboring this a bit, but in April of 2020, late April, I
Hmm.
was talking to a friend and I was like, if this is my purpose, then I don't belong here. Like if this is really the what my life is supposed to be, like I don't want it. And I
Oh,
got really close to like leaving and just
oh, Julia.
throwing it all away.
Oh, you're
Um,
gonna make me cry.
but the only reason I didn't is because of that connection I have with my mom. And there was no
Hmm.
way that I could do that to her. Like just that idea of her finding me or my brother finding me, like I couldn't do
Yeah.
it. And that literally is the thing that tethered me to my life.
Mm.
So I was talking to one of my best friends in California, and she was, trying to like talk me down. And at that point, like I didn't care about my weight. It wasn't about my weight. It was
Right.
absolutely about where I was in a, mentally. And so she kept trying to like encourage me to do yoga and to like meditate. And I was like, whatever, meditation, like so many people are like, I can't still my mind. It's always to do
Right.
list, what's
Yeah.
next. I don't have that kind of time. I'm working 80 hours. I don't have time to settle my brain
Hmm.
or whatever. And so she was trying to encourage me to do yoga and to like do mental practices, mindful practices, and I was blowing her off and just desperate and depressed. And I woke up the next morning and my coach called me. She's a good friend of mine, and she said, "Hey, do you want to do this program?" And I had done this particular weight loss program several years before. I had great success with it, but I didn't stay consistent with it because I
Hmm.
didn't change the habits. And that's the thing about losing weight. It literally isn't about, I mean, it is a little bit about, but it's not about what you're eating. It's about how you're eating. It's about when you're
Hmm.
eating, and it's about changing your relationship to all of that. And
Hmm.
like when you want to emotionally or reactively eat, where is that coming from and why? And when you have the consciousness to be able to separate yourself from that and say, wait, do I really need this? Like, no, I don't want this. I'm just doing this because I'm feeling lonely or I'm feeling this way or that way or
Hmm.
whatever. But that takes a pretty big level of understanding
Oh,
in
sure.
relationship to that food. And we don't have that largely as a culture. So anyway, when I had done the program, I remembered this like clarity of mind. It was like a fog had lifted, and it was almost like I had so much more brain space doing this program. And I
Hmm.
thought, if I'm going to do anything, even though I was not interested in losing weight, because I figured there are hundreds of 300-pound women who are happy. I just want to be
Right.
happy.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, very reluctantly. I said yes because I remembered that mental clarity. And I ordered the package, whatever it came. It literally sat here for a month and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And my coach was like, "So are you gonna do this?" And I was like, again, very reluctantly, okay. June 1st, I started the program. And what it comes down to, again, it's healthy habits.
Hmm.
It's healthy sleep, it's healthy movement, but like mostly it's, and of course, healthy eating, but it's healthy, like it's really understanding your mindset,
Hmm.
which again, as we've established, is so important. And what it does is it encourages you to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So there are all kinds of, I'm not going to tell anybody that they're right or wrong for believing in that or not believing that. People love their intermittent fasting and good on you, whatever,
Right. Yeah.
whatever gets you where you need to be so that you love yourself. I'm in, as
Yeah.
long as you're not
Yeah.
hurting yourself or anybody else, go for it. Um, but for me, eating every 2 to 3 hours has literally changed my life. It's changed the way my body functions. And
Hmm.
so, and scientifically, that's what it does. I mean, we start out feeding babies every 2 to 3 hours. And then for some reason, when they start eating solid foods, we change that. I don't know why, because I believe very strongly our bodies function better. Our insulin levels level out. We don't have the constant ups and downs of spikes. Our hormone levels, you know, balance out. And so does our mental capacity, because all of a sudden, 7 days, 2 weeks in, that fog lifted and I had this mental clarity. And
Hmm.
the biggest um, factor, the biggest shift that I remember making very consciously was the first time I'd ever done this. I was 2 weeks in, I decided I was going to start doing yoga because remember, I wanted to start that practice from my head, from my mind.
Right.
And it was awful. And I had done yoga. I used to dance, like all of these things. And so I'm a flexible person. So I expected to be able to do this well.
Right. Right.
And I did it 30 minutes of yoga and it was awful. And I could hardly do it. I could hardly get through it. And I hated myself for it. And so, but I
Mm.
remember like feeling very defeated at the end of it, laying face down on my mat and just going, feeling horrible about myself, but it was like just this little mingling in the back of my head, and it felt like I was on a balance beam. And on this side was the self-deprecation and the self-hate, which is where I lived my life. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But on this side of the balance beam, there was this little voice saying, Julia, you haven't moved in 3 months. All you do is go up and down the stairs once a week to take out the trash.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't gone on walks. You haven't done yoga in years.
Hmm.
Why would you be so hard on yourself and expect it to be the way it was 20 years ago? Like,
Hmm.
what? You're actually okay. You did it. You made it through, and it'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, Robin, I chose that.
Ah,
And like, I have goosebumps talking to you. Like,
yes.
it was massive. And ever since that day, I've really tried to hold on to that when I start feeling bad about myself.
Hmm.
When I start feeling like, Julia, you're lazy, I'll pull back and say, but what if I didn't get enough sleep last night? I can do something about that. I can make that change. What
Right.
if I'm feeling mentally exhausted because of the calls I've been on or the classes I've been taking, and I need a little bit of a break before I dive into my work or whatever that is, or before I go to the gym, or you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I find that pulling back and taking a what if approach and being curious about what's actually going on allows you that space to really look at what it is and choose to not hate yourself and to not berate yourself with
Hmm.
these expectations that we have of ourselves, whether that's based on generational narratives or societal, expectations or what. Like it's so that's the thing
Yeah.
that was the start of my journey. And um 10 months later, I was very strict. I'm a structure person, and this program is very structured, so it was easy for me.
Good.
And I just stuck to it. And I don't know why, but it was like I was determined that this is what I'm doing, so this is what I'm going to do. And I think
Hmm.
actually I say I don't know why. I felt incredible. Not only
Wow.
was I getting healthy and losing the weight, but I
Hmm.
started to see myself as who I really was. I started to be like, I'm important. And actually, I'm going to prioritize myself in this situation with work. And I've been working for 10 hours. I'm going to bed. I'm not going
Yeah.
to get up early to be here early so that I can have that spreadsheet together. I'm going to do my best in the hours with which you're paying me to work. And
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
outside of that, like, and I started kind of shifting those types of things. And I'm a vocabulary person. Vocabulary is very important to me. And this word, selfish, is so twisted. our idea of what it means to be selfish
Yeah.
is so backwards because it's your life. You get to be selfish with it.
Yeah.
You're entitled to, like, please be selfish with your time. If
I like
someone
that.
wants your time and they think that you are like being selfish because you have a boundary or you say no, who's really being selfish? They're asking you for you.
Very true.
Do you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
we feel like if we don't give of ourselves constantly that we're being selfish. And it's just not true. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's a word I really try to look at, but I started being more selfish with my time and I started trying to look myself in the mirror and tell myself that I was beautiful or that I was looking good or that, you know what I mean, whatever. And that's really hard. I don't know if you've done any mirror work, but for a lot of people starting out mirror work, looking yourself in the eye can be challenging. So let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then instead of diving into, Julia, I love you, looking yourself in the eye, maybe start with, because that's big. That's hard.
Right.
Maybe just start with, this is Louise Hay. This is her theory. And it is, I approve of myself. And I literally had post-it notes everywhere. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I would write it in big letters on my notes going into meetings with my bosses so that I could stand
Mm-hmm.
my ground and hold my
Good.
boundaries in place because I approve of myself and I am allowed to be myself. And you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that those were the things that started to feel really good because I was becoming my own person again. I always say
Sure.
that like when I was working so much, I was literally a shell of a person. And it took me a long time, more than the 10 months of losing the weight. It took me a long time to really get in touch with who I am. I mean, I'm still working on it, you know?
Yeah.
And and that's a daily practice. Um and it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
very, it's challenging, but it's also incredibly beneficial. So I think that's why, because I started to care about myself and realize how great I was feeling, why would I want to veer off of my program? Because this is helping me
Mm-hmm.
feel this way. So I was able to stick it out. And in 10 months, I lost 130 pounds.
That's
I went from a
amazing.
size 24 to a size 4. And
Oh,
I will never forget a few months later walking into a shop and the woman who works there going, "Oh gosh, you're tiny. The small section's over there." And I was like, "Wait, I'm
oh,
what?" Like in my whole life, no one has ever called me tiny,
yeah.
And it was like, holy cow. Like, and for people who have, and I think, I don't know your whole story, but I think you lost a substantial amount of weight, correct?
No,
No. Okay. So I'm
no,
sorry.
one of my guests. Yes, one
Okay.
of my
That must be who
guests.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah.
I've found for myself and for other people who I've helped lose massive amounts of weight or people I've talked to, there is a whole different aspect of what goes on in your mind that people don't necessarily know about. And I think it's really important for us to talk to. Like you hear about body dysmorphia and you hear about body image and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But like I said, in my clothes, I looked amazing. I looked tiny. I was in the size small. I'm in my little size fours, blah, blah, blah. But take my clothes off and me standing in front of that mirror, all I saw was that 300-pound girl. I can still look in the mirror and see not what's actually there. I've made major strides, but like there's a disconnect. And so like what I've actually in the last 3 to 5 months started trying to do is instead of telling myself how big I am, like I did my whole life, and I almost
Mm-hmm.
like brought that to fruition, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling myself the other thing. And the skin that's on my body, I'm grateful for. Is it beautiful? No. But at the same time, well, first of all, by whose standards, but
True.
also like I actually touch that part of my body, which I never did before, and
Mm-hmm.
hold it and tell it that I love it. I actually talk to my skin and say, I love you and thank you because for years you protected me. I don't need protection anymore. So you can go, And like, I really feel like the more I do that, the more in tune I am with, again, who I really am outside and in. And it's an act of accepting me where I am.
Mm-hmm. Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, so
Oh.
that's that story.
And I want to hear how you left that job and went to the health and wellness, but I want to go back just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you said, I don't, how many years ago you were working so many hours
Mhm.
before COVID.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you think you were hiding from, or do you think it was a depression? Like what made you turn to work and just what were you hiding from?
I definitely was hiding from myself. I remember having an epiphany and being like, well, I live alone. I'm single. And so like if I wasn't at my mom's house or you know what I mean, at a friend's house, then I was at work.
Mm-hmm.
And even though like I would stay at work and not work, but the idea of going home, I realized now, and I remember having this epiphany, I would be with me. And if you remember, I
Okay.
didn't like me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that I was running from myself. I was running from the emptiness that I felt by not being in touch with myself because
Mm-hmm.
I believe very strongly. And this is where I start talking about complete wellness. Nutrition and fitness is so important, but there's so much more to that.
Yes.
And and I believe that like I'm a very spiritual person and I believe in like the universe, God, spirit, source, whatever word you want to fill in the blank with, that is within us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the universe is my inner being, and my inner being is that part of the universe here on earth and in this body. And I believe that we all have that. And so for my physical body to not be in tune with that power and energy and creator inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
it hurts. It hurts, it
Mm-hmm.
hurts, and it's uncomfortable. And so that's what I was running from. And now being so much more in tune with that and aligning with who I am on the inside and with source, there are days like I have, like today, I'll be honest with you, I woke up this morning, nothing special happened. I went to a class, nothing special happened, but I'm literally like bouncing in my chair because I just feel so good. Like I'm
Oh, that's
so grateful
wonderful.
for today. Why? Because it's here, because it's a new
Yeah.
day. Because like, and when you're in alignment with yourself and with your God or universe or this is how it feels. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what I missed out on my entire life because I was so separated from myself. I also feel like, so there's that, and I know that now. I think that the other thing is that from various childhood traumas, I had put these protective standards in place for myself. I had to be quiet. I mean, I'm not a quiet person, so it's weird for me to say that. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a talker. Um,
That's great.
um, that's why a podcast seemed like the natural progression.
Absolutely.
um, but like, I will literally walk into a room and read the people in the room and figure out who I need to be to make everybody happy and like and
Um,
not be my true self because I needed
yeah.
to comply to the people I was around so that they wouldn't leave. And like
Yeah.
if I'm perfect and I behave, then you won't go anywhere and you'll love me. And that's what I
Mm,
so needed. And I didn't get it unless I wasn't me.
mm-hmm.
And so I very much you know, working through all that, I do a lot of inner child work and I love it. Actually, I love my inner child and I connect with her every day. Um and it's fascinating. So there was that. So that is like pleasing everybody in the room and also needing to be perfect. Those two things combined made me feel like if I didn't devote those extra hours,
Yeah.
if I wasn't the perfect employee, if I didn't show up, and then shit would hit the fan and I would like scramble and have to work extra hours. And I remember having this exact same conversation three different times with my boss and saying, okay, I did this time, but it took everything out of me and I cannot do it again. And then I did it again.
And then you do it
And the
again.
thing is
Yeah.
when you level up to like, okay, I've just added 10 hours to my work week, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go away. That becomes the new standard. So then
Mm-hmm.
when they require more or when maybe they don't require more because they never told me we need you to work more. They just gave me more work. There was
Yeah.
just issues that I needed to solve. And
Yeah.
so, and I remember the holiday right before, so it was, I guess, December 2019, because March is 2020 is when we came home. Um, I gave up my vacation. I was supposed to go on vacation for 2 weeks and for the holidays, and I didn't go because I
Mm.
needed to fix some things at work. And I was furious with my bosses for making me, quote unquote, do that.
Mhm.
And then I do remember, and I think I had this epiphany even before I started my program. They never asked me to do that. Now, they needed my work to be all of that work that it took me 2 weeks to do to be done before I left.
Mhm.
So that, that they put the expectation there, but they never told me or asked me to stay or told me that I had to.
Yeah.
And so we so often, especially when we're trying to be perfect and trying to people please, again, we'll put our own needs aside in order to make sure that we do that. And then we blame the people that feel like
Yeah.
they're responsible. And so it's what is called the drama triangle. Are you familiar with the drama triangle?
Mm-mm.
So being in the drama triangle, you're either the victim, the villain, or I always get these wrong. It's but basically I realize now that I was absolutely being the victim, but I was also being the villain because I was doing this to myself and
Mhm.
allowing and then blaming somebody else. So when you're in a state of blame or when you're in a state of reaction or resistance, then you kind of know you're playing in the drama triangle. And so you want to go a little bit like that's where I use breath work to take a breath and separate myself from that and try to be above the line. And instead of the need to be right, let's get curious about what's actually going on.
Mhm.
I might be right, but that doesn't mean they have to tell me that I'm right. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Yes.
and I can be open to other possibilities and I can be curious about where that person's coming from. I will, again, another example of this. I was in an argument with a friend of mine, and she was literally just yelling at me. And I remember taking a deep breath because I was starting to feel very reactive and uncomfortable. And it was
Mhm.
almost like an out of body experience because I felt myself go, hang on a second, is she right? And it was like, no, she's not. And I was like, I was able to go, okay, so this isn't even about me. This is about her reading into whatever's going on,
Uh-huh.
reacting to something that she's seeing that isn't actually there and projecting it onto you. So really, that's it's not in my control because there's nothing that I'm doing right or wrong. It's her. Can you hear that? I'm so sorry.
No, I
Okay,
can't.
good. I'm in an apartment building and there's a child screaming in the hallway.
Oh, yeah.
They're fine. They're playing. It's a little piercing is all. Um, so and then I asked myself further, like, is this even about me? And then it was like, at one point I thought, is she right? And it was like, yeah, she is right. And then I asked myself, do I want to change? And what she
Mm.
was upset with me about that she was right were some of these changes and boundaries that I'd put in place. And it was like, no, that's who I am now. So
Yeah.
she can be upset and I'm going to allow her to be upset, but I'm not willing to make that change. And so
Yeah.
then instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry, and acquiescing to what she wanted, what I
Mhm.
said was, I'm really sorry that these changes are affecting you that way. Or like, I'm sorry you feel that way, which sounds
Yeah.
passive aggressive, but it wasn't. And then there was another thing that I thought, okay, that's a good point. I can change
Mhm.
that. And so I was
Yeah.
able to say, you're right. And these are the efforts I'm going to be able to. But now I'm not in this reactive fight or flight mode. I'm actually
Right.
breathing through this and asking myself, is this true? Is she right? Yes, no. What is in my power to control?
Mhm.
And looking at that and saying, okay, here we are. And at no point did I get angry. At no point did I react. I was just able to be like, all right, here we are. Because nobody
Yeah.
can make me mad. It's
Yeah.
how I respond to whatever's going on. So,
Yes. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of work with that the past 6 months as well. And it's amazing how you can train yourself and train your thoughts to step back and take a look at the situation. And I think
yeah,
meditation helps with that so much. And you had
yeah.
talked about, being in alignment.
Hmm.
And, I can just hear the people now, well, how the heck do I find that? How do
Yeah,
I get in alignment? So
yeah, yeah.
what would you say to that?
So I highly recommend a breathing practice, which what does that mean? It means, for me, it means I wake up in the morning. We can talk about that later, but I wake up in the morning and I just say out loud, good morning. Say myself to the universe, to whomever is in the
Mhm.
room. Good morning. And then I usually look outside and I'm grateful for a beautiful day, even if it's raining, because we need the rain, and
Yeah.
thank you for another day. I
Hmm.
woke up this morning. That's something to be grateful for. And so I always try to start my day off with gratitude, and it absolutely alters the trajectory of my day.
Yes. Yes.
I get a glass of water. I come out, sit on the couch. I've literally just woken up and I sit on the couch and I breathe for 5 minutes. Usually I'll start with some like neck stretches or something just to kind of like heal from my pillow or whatever. And I just do what's called box breathing, which you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So it makes like a little box. For me, I like to play a piece of music that's about 5 to 7 minutes long, just like some relaxing sounds or music. So then when the music ends, I know I'm done instead of like
Hmm.
an alarm beeping at me. Like that can be
Yeah.
like abrasive, especially when you're trying to find this calm. And sometimes there will be a to-do list, sometimes there won't. The idea is when you're counting, and this is why I always recommend to start with the box breath. If you're counting, you have less room for your body to like, or for your mind to wander because you're counting. It's
Hmm.
occupied, you know.
Hmm.
But I will say, excuse me, that you're human. So your mind will wander. And everybody's
Hmm.
like, oh, I can't meditate or I can't do a breathing practice because I just can't focus. Well, good. It's a practice. You're
Yeah.
human, so your mind's going to wander. It's just about noticing that your mind's wandering and coming back to focusing on your breath. What breathing does is like, it's crazy. I just woke up from sleep, but after breathing for 5 minutes, you feel rejuvenated, you feel recharged. And that is literally because you've taken a moment to align yourself to yourself, right?
Hmm.
I then usually recommend once we get that down, then doing some sort of meditative practice or prayer practice or whatever kind of floats your boat. But
Sure.
a lot of like the most amazing, prolific preachers, spiritual leaders have a breathing practice even before they go into their hours of prayer because it literally centers you.
Hmm.
It provides this sense of calm, really.
Hmm.
So that's step one is wake up, set your alarm 3 to 5 minutes early every day. Go sit on the couch before anybody else wakes up and breathe. Close your eyes, breathe. I don't recommend laying down because it's super easy to fall back asleep.
Yeah.
Sit up. I like to plant my feet on the ground because that's a little bit about getting grounded, which we can talk about
Hmm.
later. And that helps you connect to the floor. You're sitting up straight. And those are all things that you can pay attention to when your mind starts to wander. But again, when we're starting with box breath, that's kind of taken care of in the counting. The other thing that I recommend doing is when you start to, so let me just comment on another thing about why that's important is because when you start to have that breathing practice where you are kind of almost living in this sense of like connection and like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you're just connected and you start to notice things. You start to
Hmm.
notice things. And so that's kind of the next step that I advise my clients is, okay, then when you're outside and it's a beautiful day, say out loud in your car, wow, it's gorgeous. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, look how blue that sky is. That's a cute dress she's wearing. Like, we are so easy to call someone an asshole when they cut us off. Why are we so what like words are power? If thoughts are power, how much more
Yeah.
powerful are words? And if we're gonna say that outside out loud, oh my goodness,
Hmm.
let's say some positive stuff out loud. But just by saying that is beautiful, that's
Hmm.
gratitude. That's literally you saying, I love this. Thank you. Oh my gosh, these are my favorite pajamas. I love these pajamas. That's actually gratitude for those pajamas. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So when people
Yes.
struggle to find something they're grateful for, I'm like, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Literally, keep it
Yes.
simple. Like, what do you love? I love my dog. Fantastic. You're grateful for your dog, whatever that
Yeah.
is. So when we start to notice those little things, all of a sudden, again, it's a practice, we start to notice how we're feeling, how we're talking to ourselves, what that voice in our head is saying. And a lot of times we can say, like, thank you very much. I got this under control. Go back to your room or whatever, because you need to shut up or whatever. Um, but the reason why I bring all that up is because then throughout the day, when you feel yourself reacting or you feel yourself being heightened because your boss is telling you that you have to work overtime or like somebody's coming at you with something,
Hmm.
just take a second to breathe.
Hmm.
And I always recommend when you're walking around the office or something like that, if you're with people who might cause you extra stress, carry a bottle of water, because nobody's gonna blink an eye if you undo your water bottle and take a sip and then you put it back on before you respond to them. That just
Hmm.
bought you 15 seconds where you
Yes,
can take a
that's
deep
good.
and ask yourself, is this about me? Do I need to, like, how do I want to respond and
Hmm.
not react? Because I don't want to get angry.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to allow this situation to ruin my day. And
Yes.
so that is about taking back your power and staying in control of yourself and of your life and of the situation. And um, so drinking a drink of water. The other thing is if you're like at work or whatever, and you're like, I'm so stressed out, get up, because you're not going to be productive in that stressed out state. It is very unhealthy for your body in a stressed out state. If you're trying to lose weight and you're stressed, you will not lose weight. If you're trying to maintain, you will gain weight. Like stress does
Yeah.
crazy things to you. So when you start feeling in that place, stop what you're doing, push yourself back. And I usually like to say, change your environment, like go for a walk, just get
Hmm.
outside. I believe so strongly that nature and outdoors are so good for us. It's so
Yes.
powerful. So if you can step outside, do that. Take 3 deep breaths and come back in. And you will notice there's just this sense of calm that comes over you when you take 3 deep breaths. If you
Hmm.
can't change your environment, push yourself back from your desk, close your eyes, take 3 to 5 deep breaths. You'll feel like renewed. And it is a combination of connecting to yourself, but it's also a reset. And when we
Hmm.
like take a nap, you wake up and you're like, okay, I feel refreshed. Fantastic. It's because you've reset. When you reset, you've got about 17 seconds to either go back to the state where you were or to maintain the new state. That's why I like to wake up in the morning and say, I'm so grateful for la 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 la, because I've started my morning with 17 seconds of gratitude and not remembering the news that I watched before I went to bed last night. Because as humans,
Right.
we are really good with remembering the bullshit. We're
Yeah.
really good at it. So try to take control of that and take a deep breath. 3 things. Okay, I love this chair. This chair is really comfortable. All of a sudden, my trajectory is heading to the positive, and I can go back to my job or my work or my writing or whatever it is,
Hmm.
refreshed and away from just by this much, just a
Yeah.
fraction of an inch. It just separates us from the crap and the chaos. So I am a strong believer in breath. And so that was a very long winded answer to your question about how to connect.
No, that was great. Okay, so when you decided that you had had enough in your job, um, what was that? Was there one thing that happened, or were you just like, this is the next step?
Yeah.
It's right here in front of me.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a process. I had already started coaching the program that I was on. I started coaching probably 2 or 3 months into it because I started noticing such a huge difference in myself. And I'm again not even talking about the weight, which was incredible. And I'm super grateful for it, but how much I valued myself. And I just
Yeah.
thought to myself, if I could help one other person feel this great about themselves, I was looking for purpose.
Yeah.
How, like, that alone is a life's purpose, is to just help one person feel this good.
Yes.
That one person, or that first person, ended up being my mom. And my mom lost 100 pounds and she started feeling really good. And she told me once that she looked, I'm going to cry. She looked in the mirror and she said out loud to herself, she didn't mean to, but it just came out. She goes, there you are. And it was
Oh,
like she reconnected to herself. And it was like, I helped her do that. Now, I'm going to be
that's
very clear.
amazing.
As a coach, it's she did the work.
Right.
She did
Yeah.
it. I just got to guide her and be there with her along that journey. It is her journey. I tell all my clients, you are the hero of your story. I just
Hmm.
get to witness it and help you along the way. Um, and then after I'd lost my weight, so we're probably talking just over a year of me starting the program. I was coaching a whole bunch of different people, again, largely on weight loss and in this path of how I discovered it. And it's interesting because some people start a program because they want to lose weight and that's all they're interested in, and they're not interested in the mental part of it. And that has taken me a while to kind of realize. And for
Hmm.
me, because I believe so passionately that mind, body, and soul and spirit are completely intertwined. And when you work on one, you kind of got to work on the others in order to
Hmm.
have that. And So that's challenging for me. And so it's like I've started to kind of clarify that I'm not just a weight loss coach. And that's why I've added wellness onto, instead of just saying I'm a certified health coach. Now I'm saying I'm a health and
Yeah.
wellness coach, because I believe that that is actually more important. Obviously, our bodies need to be in good shape and, and have proper nutrition in order to thrive and contribute to the rest of it. Again, you can't just work on one thing. It is all
Right.
connected. Um, so anyway, that's how things have shifted a little bit for me. But about a year in, I went on a retreat with other coaches within this program. And I actually snuck off for a little spa day on my own. And I was sitting in a hot tub with two other people, and they asked me what I did for a living. And so I used to run a company. Well, I didn't run the company. I ran a building where a lot of the Broadway shows would rehearse before they went to their theaters.
Oh, cool.
Amazing. Like, it was
Yeah.
really cool. I loved working with the stage managers. Like, it was really a lot of fun. And so I told them that, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. I love Broadway." They were so excited. They were like, "You just must love your job." And I just sat there, and it was like, and I put on a face and was like, "Yeah, it's incredible, da 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 da." But it
Yeah.
hit me. This is an amazing job. This should be really fun. I should be loving my job.
Hmm.
Don't. And I just thought, someone who loves this job deserves this job. I love what I'm doing helping these people. I need to do that. And
Yeah.
so I decided kind of that day, I'm out.
Yeah.
Then it took another month or two for me to be like, okay, I'm actually doing this. And then in September, I put in my notice. Maybe it was August. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I put in my notice and gave way too much notice. um,
Of course.
and so actually next month it will be 2 years that I've been a full-time health and wellness coach, and it has not been easy, and as far financially. And that's what I was going to say.
Hmm.
The financial advisor would have looked at me and said, "You're crazy, you can't do
Hmm.
this yet. Build your
Yeah.
business first and then do this." But I knew I couldn't stay there. I was
Yeah.
miserable when I was there, and trying to balance not being miserable, knowing how to not be miserable. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
like, and yet I kept putting myself in that situation. It was like, I gotta stop. And I've had some help, but at the same time, it's been 2 years. I live in New York and I still pay my rent, you know? So like,
Yeah.
it's when you trust and you do, and you make those moves and you trust the universe, which again, because I believe that there's a part of that inside of me, that means I'm trusting myself. And
Yes.
when you make those decisions and you pay attention to what feels good, I felt awful every day I went into work. I feel great every time I hang up with a client, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yes.
when you follow what feels good, you kind of can't go wrong. And there's a point where you have to ask yourself, I don't know how. There are months when I say, I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. I just know that I am. And I have
Yeah.
to trust that. And I feel so called, and like literally feel like I've gotten all of these downloads and everything, and it's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it feels so good that I can't doubt. There's no room for doubt, because when
Hmm.
you believe that this is that you're doing something that you are called to do, how can you fail?
Right.
You've been called to
Absolutely.
do this, so you're not going to fail. So don't
Yeah.
let those little voices talk to you. Tell them to go back to their room. I got this. We're good. We're going to
Yeah.
trust. I don't know how, I just know that.
Yeah.
Um, I do you ever listen to Abraham Hicks?
No, I need to. That name keeps
I've
coming up in
yeah,
so many circles in my life.
yeah. I love them. And one of the things that they were talking about is that you have all of these things on your to-do list, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get all of this done. And so what you do is you do the things that need the most priority, and you make two lists. There's these priority lists, and then there's all this other stuff. And you take that list, rip it in half, and you hand the rest to God or the
Ah,
universe or source. And you say,
yeah.
okay, if we are co-creating this life, I'll take care of this list. You take care of that list, and let it go.
Nice.
And like, there's power in that, to be like,
Wow.
I'm going to do this and you got to take care of the rest. So it's the same thing. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep connecting to you and to me. And I'm going to keep reaching out to people and speaking my truth, because that's what you brought me here to do. And that's what I'm here to do and to be. And so who gets in my path? That's up to you. How
Hmm.
they pay me? That's up to you. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes. Yeah.
that, I can't worry about that stuff. I can't worry about how many clients sign up with me or whatever like that. All I can do is keep being my authentic self and moving forward every day in
Nice.
inspired action. And
Yes.
it feels really good. And
Oh
I want
my
to be honest.
gosh.
We all have he like shitty human moments is what my friend
Oh
Donna
yeah.
calls. And
Yeah.
it's so true. Like I sound all poly positive and sunshine and roses, and that's how I'm feeling today.
Yeah.
So, but there are
Yay, I caught you
days.
on a good day. No.
Yeah, totally. But there are days, like I still watch, I don't watch the news, but like I still know what's going on in this world. I still
Right.
know, like,
Yeah.
and I'm affected by that. And I still have
Sure.
people get upset with me, and I still disappoint people and get disappointed in people. We're human. And
Hmm.
so when we talk about things like, I've really tried to analyze toxic positivity. And I feel like there's a difference between being able to find light in a dark situation, whether that's laughing at something that just is so ridiculous about this, or about what somebody on the news is wearing, like just something to lighten it up a little bit and provide
Hmm.
some sort of levity. And there's a difference between that and trying to find a light in the tunnel than pretending that the bullshit isn't happening and putting a plastic smile on it
Yes.
saying, "Oh, but I'm so positive." That can be toxic.
Sure.
Not
Sure.
what That's not what we're talking
Hmm.
about at all. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, Julia, this has been fantastic. And I am just so grateful that you're here, that you
Thank
found your
you.
worth, that you found your purpose.
Yeah.
It's obvious that this is what you should be doing.
Thank you.
And now we're
I
both
think so
crying.
too. I know.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Okay. So tell me how people can find you, the
okay.
name of your podcast, and your course that's coming out.
Sure. My podcast is called Life After Breath,
Yes.
which is kind of my thing.
Yes.
I'm super excited about, like I said, exploring all of the different things. But to me, it all comes back to that breath, that morning breath, all of that, that break breath, all of that. So Life After Breath is the podcast. It's launching very, very soon, and I'm very excited about that. November
Mhm.
6th is when that'll be up. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and soon we'll be on YouTube with Life After Breath. So you can
And
find
I'll
me in all
include
of
that in the
those
show
places.
notes. So you
Sure,
guys can
perfect.
check there.
And yeah, and so right now I'm doing kind of daily reels of like just breathing stuff, but my podcast is going to be daily breath. Our daily breath is what it's called, just 3 to 5 minutes, and then I'll
Nice.
have other sessions too. But like we're going to have that daily breathing for everybody to
Okay.
try to start with some clarity. So
Wonderful.
yeah. And then the workshop is going to probably be something about reclaiming your life. And then, but that's going to be launching in January. It's still in a little bit in development and refining. And then there's probably going to be a couple of other things to play with and do for free along the way to like check it out, see if it's
Yeah.
something you're interested in. And then the course will be in January. It'll be a 6-week course.
Okay.
So
Add me
I'm
to the
really
email
excited about
list
it.
because I want that information.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
Cool. I will for sure.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. Can't wait to have you on my podcast. Yay.
Yay.
All right.
Wow. Did I not tell you that was going to be amazing? I have 22 takeaways written down, but I'm going to condense them down into 8. You're welcome. 1, what you tell yourself and the labels you choose can be very powerful. The story you're living right now doesn't have to be your story for life. You have the power to become your own person again and love yourself. 2, you can always find something to hide behind: work, alcohol, drugs, any toxic behavior. It takes courage to look in the mirror, listen to that little voice, and choose self-compassion to make changes. 3, you belong. I'm glad you're here. 4, the word selfish is so twisted. It is your life, and you get to be selfish with it. 5, healthy is complete wellness. 6, sprinkle positive affirmations and gratitude all day long to begin to change your viewpoint and keep it simple. 7, stress will wreak havoc on your body and mind. Breathe, change your environment, hit reset, learn to respond rather than react. And 8, it's all a practice. There's no game day or recital, so keep going. You are the hero of your own story. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you take a few seconds to do each or all of the following. First, follow or subscribe to Spandex and Wine. It'll help you so you don't miss an episode, and it'll help me because you won't miss any episodes. To do this, you'll just go to the podcast, click subscribe or follow wherever you are listening. Look for the plus sign or follow button, and this is one of the best things that you can do for the podcast, so thank you. If you'd also be willing to give a 5-star review, that would be amazing. And lastly, please share an episode with a friend or 5 to keep the love going. I appreciate you. Thanks.